This episode of Living Corporate is brought to you by Blind. Blind is a trusted community of more than 5 million verified professionals from startups to some of the largest companies in the world like Amazon, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Goldman Sachs, Google, JP Morgan, Meta, and more. Blind's mission of transparency seeks to break down professional barriers and silos at work so that you can make productive change and advance your career. It's a safe space to ask questions and get the real-time insights and perspectives from people who know what you've been through. On Blind, you can connect and have honest discussions about everything from compensation, company culture, performance reviews, promotions, and more. You can also join your exclusive private company channel to chat with your coworkers about company policies and what's really going on at work. And because it's anonymous, you can be honest and trust what you read on Blind. Download and install Blind from the App Store or visit teamblind.com to get access to the latest salary, company reviews, and interview experiences at thousands of companies worldwide.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Break Room, a podcast by Black mental health professionals for Black professionals with a mission to remind you that you matter, you're valuable, and your wellness and joy are a priority for liberation. We specifically talk about mental health in the workplace. My name is Jide Bamashigben, and I'm a health psychologist, as well as the husband and father of 2 young boys. And I'll pass it over to you, Dr. Nikki.
Hello. I always love the show description because every time I'm like affirmed and why we're here and why we do this. So I am Dr. Nikki. I am a licensed psychologist and sex self-confidence coach in Houston. I have a private practice where I work exclusively with Black women and couples. And I also do racial healing, racial equity work for small to mid-sized organizations. And we're back for season 3, and we're very, very excited to be back for season 3. Season 2 was a struggle season. I think we came out the gate real hard for season 1, but it was still mid-pandemic. And so we maybe over promised what we could deliver for season 2 a little bit. So we
did our best.
We absolutely did our best. But I feel like we took a good break. I did. I feel like I had a good summer, a good break, and we're ready to get back into it because there's lots of things going on that we want to get into. So if you are new to the Break Room, first of all, thank you for joining us. Second of all, be a friend, tell a friend. And third of all, make sure to rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. And then most importantly, let us orient you into sort of how we structure the show. So we always start with a little bit of tea, so we can talk about something that's going on that everybody can relate to, that we think has relevance here to our conversation. And then we'll talk about our topic of the day, which I'm excited to get into this one today. And then we always wrap up with a last nerve because, you know, being Black in America, there's always something getting on our last nerve. So that'll be how we use our time.
And this is a 2-parter.
Yes, this one is a 2-parter. Yes. So let's get into the tea for a little bit though, Jide. Let me just confess. I think I have said here, but I'll say again. Black Twitter scares me. Like, I feel like all you gotta do is take one fatal step and you are permanently canceled, or at least like heavily clowned on Black Twitter. And I just don't have the psychological
Black Twitter never forgets. They don't forget anything. They remember back in 3rd grade when you called somebody a poopy head. They pull up the receipts in the video and the picture. Yeah. And
there's no coming back.
Even the video didn't exist back then.
Somebody they'll find a gift to make it look like it was you. So, so I say that to say I'm a Twitter observer, and the Twitter streets have been hot this week because Queen Elizabeth of England, I don't know her official title. I know Mary of Scots. I don't know if she has an official title. She died
at 96.
At 96 years old. She held on, honey.
For 73 years as the monarch.
That's crazy to me.
That's 3/4 of a century, to be clear. As a queen of England. Okay? I just feel like those details are important.
They really are important because they were talking about all the sort of historical milestones that she reigned over. And I was like, yeah, that broad was around for a long time. And so what's been interesting is the British have been known for saying this famous saying of the sun never sets on the British Empire. And I remember when I was younger, it took me a minute to get that. And I was like, oh, because y'all have colonized so much of the world. Right. That's an interesting flex. Right. And so now that she's died, right, it is sort of a standard of white supremacy to have decorum and not speak ill of the dead and sort of all these things around respectability. But a lot of the colonized folks around the world have been like, ding dong, the witch is dead. Like
doing a jig on her grave.
On it, like unapologetically.
You know, like.
And, you know, I had never really thought too much about her. I've always thought it odd that folks in the United States ever felt any kind of way about a monarchy. I mean, there are other monarchies that exist, but particularly as the United States, we've always had this really weird relationship with the British monarchy. So I've always been like, that's odd. Y'all weird, but never thought too much about it. And then, when all of the stuff started coming out about her death, I was like, yeah, she was kind of horrible. Like at least she didn't do anything to create good. Right?
I mean, can you, as the queen, like, you know, as the Queen of England, like, you know, listen, people are literally sitting over here having sympathy for the Queen of England, dog. And it's just like, this is the Queen of England. She will crush you. She doesn't care about you. She's never cared about you. Dominated the world, colonized countries everywhere. Colonized people in their minds, made them hate themselves. Even if, listen, she was old enough to serve in World War II, to be clear. Okay, that's how old she is. Right? You know, and people are on the internet and they're laughing. And the idea is, well, you should have decorum, you should whatever. I saw one funny tweet and I was like, Black people, if you can't have respect, you don't deserve reparations, which is hilarious to me. You know, which is hilarious. But we do not care. We do not care.
We do not care. Like, we do not care. We're trying to get free and move on and like, what?
We do not care. We do not care. We do not care.
We do not care.
We do not care.
So I have just been enjoying the Black Twitter roasting her and just telling the truth. And that's the thing about it. It's really like nobody's going out of their way to slander her. These are just truths. They're just stating facts.
I mean, people defending her, talking about, well, she didn't. Listen, do you know what she could have done? Right. She could have said sorry. She could have said, you know what, we messed over the rest of y'all. I apologize. Like, here's what I'm going to do. She didn't do that. So you're just as guilty as the rest of them. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it comes down to this. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
For me, it's the same as like, if you're not actively being anti-racist, then you are racist, right? Like, if you're not actively using one of the most biggest platforms in the world, right? Like, yes, recognize the separation of the monarch from the actual government of Britain, but the monarch still has a lot of sway, right, and influence, and it did at other earlier points. And you never took a moment to give a damn about none of the people that you had.
Your face is on money, ma'am. Like, literally, your face is on money. What are you acting like? You know, like, listen, I'll say this, okay? And this is just me. Listen, somebody's mom died, somebody's sister died, somebody's grandma died, like somebody's aunt died. Like, I understand how that's hard for those people.
Correct.
That's the most sympathy and empathy I can have. Like, yes. Your family member died, that's never easy. I get that. But, you know, ding dong, bitch is dead. We do not care.
We do not care. So that sums up that tea. And then there's like 10 days of pomp and circumstance. Let's move on. So
to crown another king.
And he basically was like, oh yeah, and to my son and his Black wife, we see y'all, and we ain't changed our mind. Like,
God bless. Be easy.
You keep your little half-breed grandbabies on over there on the other side too, right? Listen. Whatever, people. So that is the hot scalding tea and crumpets that's been happening lately. So let's really get into it, because I think both parts of today's conversation are super important. And that we haven't pointedly had this conversation here on the break room. And I think it's definitely vital to me. And so the title of today's episode is Everybody Hates Black Women.
Everybody hates black women.
Yes, everybody hates black women. So we really want to talk specifically about misogynoir, obviously, in the context of work, right? Which I saw a podcast the other day that says it was two black women on the podcast, and they were like, "Oh, have you heard about misogyny blanc?" And the one black woman was like, "Wait, what?" And apparently, the white feminists have gotten mad that black women have coined the term misogyny
blanc. Oh my god,
misogyny blanc. They stay mad. So anyway, we won't even go into that with you today. We will leave it alone. But misogynoir, if you are uninformed or have not heard the term, is a term that's been coined to talk about the specific experience around oppression, discrimination, and prejudice aimed towards black women, right? So recognizing sort of the real inextricable identity of being black and woman at the same time, and recognizing that black women experience a particular sort of hatred out in the world. And relevant to the break room in particular, we are a Black podcast about Black mental health in the workplace. There was, or is, she's still with us, she's not dead, but last month, I think she's
Shabri Rawls.
Gen Z. I think she's probably. 27 is Gen Z. I don't know what the cutoffs are.
Late millennial, maybe Gen Z.
Okay. On the cusp. We'll say that, right? So yeah, a young black woman, and my guess would be a young therapist because of her age, right? And so she has a decent TikTok platform. Actually, I am a follower of hers and have been following her for a while and knew about her content. There's some, there's a lot of her content that I actually agree with. It's resonant with mine. We had commented on each other's stuff. So, I was shocked to see that she had gone viral around this one particular TikTok in which she was talking about, black men, and talking about indirectly to black men and seeking mental health services. And so let's give the overview and then we can sort of unpack, right? So she does this TikTok. My understanding is somebody picked it up and put it on Twitter. It then went viral, and then the black male patriarchy got really, really, really in their feelings, and just came back with a lot of ugly comments, a lot like just really violent and demeaning, demoralizing sort of commentary. Well, then fast forward, unfortunately, a black woman blogger took this as her opportunity to, get a little shine for herself. And she outs, the young woman. And by outs, I mean, she put her full name and her residence, not her exact address, but her city and state of residence and her place of employment. And that was all it took. She got doxxed, and there was so much harassment, to her place of employment that within a week she was fired. And so, I think that it's both, like indicative of where we are in our current sort of, lack of boundary between personal and professional because of social media. I think it's a really good, illustration of, the power of patriarchy. I think it's a really good illustration of how misogynoir, is a particularly deleterious form of oppression because black women are multiply marginalized. Therefore, the sort of consequences of that violence towards us is multiplied as well. And then I also think, lastly, it's a opportunity for a conversation around respectability politics, right? And then maybe even a conversation about what people's general expectations are for therapists, in terms of how they, I don't know, show up in the world, how they're allowed to be, and how they're allowed to sort of demonstrate their professionalism, right? And kind of what that means. So there's a lot to unpack. And so G-Day and I had some conversation about this offline, and we had some points of agreement and points of disagreement. And so we thought we would save the real conversation for the break room. So have at, G-Day. Would you add anything? Did I leave out any important details?
I would characterize the entire situation differently, actually, than the way you described it.
Fascinating.
I would characterize the entire thing differently than the way you described it. So so let's start with our points of agreement. Okay.
Okay.
I don't think she deserved to be fired. I don't think she should have lost her job.
Okay.
I think you agree with me there.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's, yeah.
She should not have lost her job. That's awful. That's playing with people's livelihood is whatever. But there's another discussion about that, right? Because, and I'm not saying it's the same, right? But if a white therapist gets on the internet and says something crazy, right, about race or whatever, we want you fired, yes. Right? And I'm not saying it's the same, but there's a overarching thing that's similar, right? Hey, you got to be mindful of what you see on the internet, right? I think that misogyny is a problem in the workplace, and Black women are often negatively affected by it, right? Because that's not misogyny that affects Black women is an issue, So right. I think we agree there. But and this is talking as somebody as a psychologist, right? As a researcher who studies men and fathers. Mm-hmm. I found her video offensive. And even it wasn't really that video. So let's talk about what that video said, right? Mm-hmm. So that video, she talked about essentially. I'm looking up a quote, so I want to just say this.
Okay.
I've been telling y'all mother effers, y'all are going to be single for the rest of your effing life if you do not increase your emotional communication skills, emotional intelligence, or any of these things. There's nothing but proof that these podcasts, alpha male, bullish, father issue, having a mother effers is forcing y'all to a lifetime of singleness, right? Despite actual statistics saying that men are actually the F alone because y'all refuse to expand your emotional vocabulary, itch bays are not dealing with your horse ish anymore. Even in an article, because this is about a Cite Today article that pointed out that men are having less options because women are raising their standards. Y'all are still not believing this. I have so many clients that are leaving their partners because they refuse to expand any part of themselves, right? I'm here to tell you, bro, that we're human beings, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So,
right.
Whatever. I found what she said to be a little offensive and a bit out of pocket, but it was another video she posted, okay?
Okay.
Where this is how the line starts, okay? My favorite flavor of ice cream is hardworking Black man, but I can't seem to find that flavor in the store no more, and I'm trying to figure out the FY. Okay, so just pause there. To me, that's tapping in stereotypes about Black men as being lazy and unemployed and all that stuff. Point blank period.
Oh.
Point blank period. She tapped in a lot of negative stereotypes about Black men.
So to me, as a single Black woman who has single Black woman friends, who works with single Black women clients, that felt like, thank you for giving voice to our experience. So I think it's a matter of the lens, right? I think if the external, if it's a white gaze, absolutely, we can talk about there being long-standing stereotypes and use of that sort of lazy Negro framework that's been around for centuries. I get that, G-Day.
Yes.
My disconnect from that is this was an internal conversation for Black people, among Black people, about Black people.
So there's no such thing on the internet.
But we just talked about Black Twitter
there's no such
15 minutes ago.
But even there's still the white gaze on that. Like, you still have to, me, like, as a person who's employed a job, I still have to, even though most of my friends are Black, most of my whatever is Black, I still have to be mindful about what I say, because somebody just pull that up and say, whoop, this problem. Like, for me, what she said is perfect group text conversation. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's a perfect thing to send in a group text to your friends. You putting it on TikTok and you have 40-something K followers, that's, you know, all of those people aren't Black, right? They got on Twitter, all these people. I don't know.
Okay. So at some point though, right? So here's the thing about me and white supremacy. At some point, we collectively as Black people have to stop giving fucks about how they perceive us. Like, I think that's fundamentally why we push back on respectability politics. And I take the position of, if we're always constantly trying to legitimize our frameworks, trying to make sure that we present them in a way that is palatable, trying to make sure we have only conversations in certain spaces, we're actually like capitulating to white supremacy. And we really live in a time where we are way more connected digitally than we are in actual physical proximity and interaction. And so I think that you have to look at the cost and benefits. Is there a cost that that her words and framework out of context reinforce stereotypes about Black men? Absolutely. But guess what? They gonna do that whether she's saying what she's saying or not. Whether she's on TikTok saying that or not. And she did. Because that is her lived experience. The reason why I don't talk about those things on social media is because the one video that I made that talked about very similar things, as she has said, my framework was around the couples I work with. My language is different. My presentation is different. I'm of a different generation than her. It went viral and people threatened to dox me. People threatened to report me to my licensing board. People said that I was a horrible person. I have been called a feminist as if that's a bad thing, right? I've had Black men come and just talk about my body, like to try to fat shame me or talk about really superficial things and get really, really vile with other Black women in my comments around sexually assaulting their daughters. Like, it goes crazy and fast. And if you're a Black woman and the people that come at you with that level of hate, vitriol, violence are Black men, then I have a right to speak about that as my true experience.
So I don't disagree with any of what you said. I witnessed what you're talking about and the behavior that you've experienced towards yourself, and I don't condone it. And even your video, like, to me, there's orders of magnitude difference between your video and this video, to me, right? But that's a separate conversation. So my thing though is, it's still, so she posted this on the internet to her 40,000 TikTok followers, right? And then it got taken to Twitter because that's how the internet goes, right?
Yes.
There are men going, yeah, F you, itch, da 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 da, going the misogynistic route. But then what about the other people, such as myself, right? Am I not allowed to get on the internet and say, I don't like that. I don't like the way you spoke about us that way? Because to me, it feels like lots of the conversation is, y'all shut up. Y'all shut up. I don't want to hear what you have to say about it. This is not I'm not saying this to you, but lots of the conversation on the internet is, no. Well, y'all let Kevin Samuels do it. Forget Kevin Samuels. We're not even talking about Kevin Samuels. They're not even comparable. He's a misogynist and he's dead. So, ding dong, witch is dead. Right?
Ding dong.
But like, are we not, the witch is dead. Okay? Yes. But are we not allowed to, are not a substantial, because I'm telling you, for me, and as my experience, as my lived experience, I get on the internet and I'm like, I don't like the language she used. I feel like it was kind of condescending. I feel like whatever. No. Well, you this. Well, you that. Well, you that. No, it's not. I'm not allowed to not like it. I'm not allowed as a Black man to say, even if it is a Black woman, I don't like that you're trafficking negative stereotypes about us. I don't like that.
But I feel like I'm allowed to say that. I think you are allowed to say that. I agree. That is the discomfort that we all have to sit in when the minute we start talking about equity and inclusion. Like, that's why the shit doesn't work out in corporate spaces, because it means that everybody gets to have a valid viewpoint, right? And, or everybody's perspective is seen as valid. Here's where my disconnect though, lays with that is that, or is it lies? I don't know. My disconnect with that point in particular is just because something is stereotypical doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in reality. Like, that's a pervasive stereotype that has been used. And I think part of the pushback you may have been perceiving, or what I sometimes feel is I'm going to say two things that are related. Either there is a denial or distortion of my reality because I experience the brunt of that stereotype, right? Or men that I know are like really good, decent black men, like yourself, like other people that I know, don't attack, and I use that word, don't attack the black men attacking us. You can have a conversation with me about your difference of opinion about that, or that you feel bothered that she's promoting a stereotype about black men. But what I would much rather is you tell all of the assholes, and really unhealed men to stop talking crazy to me, right? Like, to stop attacking the victim. And that the silence that good, and I'm putting that in air quotes because obviously that's subjective and this is a much deeper conversation. But I think the way patriarchy works is that it allows good, decent men to still be silent. Like, you're like, well, I'm doing my part. I don't do that. I'm not raising my boys like that. That's not what my research shows. I know that. So that's only a stereotype. And what I thought she was saying, or what I was resonating with, was like, I hear you, and it's not a stereotype. Like, the stuff that we have to deal with regularly as black women on behalf of black men, I think until you actually have to live in it, there's no way for you to fully get the scope. It's the same way I don't ever expect a white person to empathize with my experience with black racism. Anti-blackness. They never could. They could read all the books in the world, go to all the lectures, all the things, and they would never know what this experience to live in this context like. And I think that happens far too much between black men and black women. And I think that there wasn't, let me say it this way. The fact that the number of angry black men could call in mass and get her fired without there being any pushback from black men defending her is an indication that there's still a lot of internal damage between genders in the black community. So let's pause now and let's end this episode. Okay.
I think that's a great point to pause right there.
Okay.
And we'll pick it up on our next episode. And then pick it up on our next episode. Okay?
Okay. All right.
So thank y'all for joining us today. We appreciate you. We're going to do
This is like a cliffhanger. Dun, dun, dun.
It's a cliffhanger, right? We're going to do our last nerve at the end of our second episode. Okay?
All right. Y'all got to come back and listen to part 2.
Listen to part 2. Thank y'all.
Living Corporate is brought to you by Doximity. Over 90% of graduating medical students join Doximity to use our tools before earning their doctoral degree. As medicine's largest network, there's an elevated level of responsibility to everything we do. We don't take that responsibility lightly and are committed to working towards a more equitable world inside and beyond our virtual office walls. If you want to learn more about Doximity, make sure you go to your app store, type in DOXIMITY. That's DOXIMITY.